I moved to Ireland, I had heard some, quote, legends about Jeremiah going there. Let's go read the source material on this.
So what you're saying is that maybe Zedekiah is telling Queen and his youngest son, hey, deliver this to Lachish and then get the heck out of there.
That's right. But listen, this stone has these pictographic history of them leaving Egypt and arriving in Ireland. There's been Phoenician ships sunk off the coast of modern-day Turkey that have been found loaded with copper from Lake Superior.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Stick of Joseph YouTube channel. Super awesome to see you guys. Last week at the Firm Foundation Conference, literally hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 people stopped by and said hi to our booth over the 3 days of the conference, and it was overwhelming. We love you guys. We're grateful that we are creating a space where lovers of the Book of Mormon can hang out and learn. So today's interview is actually someone that I interviewed at the Firm Foundation Conference. Last week we did a video on Mulek, which was really interesting. And we talked about two prevailing theories of who Mulek is and how that whole story went down. Today, there's a third one that I didn't even know about that I find to be very compelling and interesting, having to do with Jeremiah and the whole crew actually sailing up north in the England, Ireland, Scotland area before heading over to the Americas. I find it to be very compelling and interesting. There's a lot of oral history involved and it's fun. But before I share it with you, I want to let you guys know that In the Language of Adam, the book that we've been waiting for, that we are publishing with Plain and Precious Publishing, written by Dave Butler, is coming out next week, and you can actually pre-order it now. Link in the description. We're trying our best to anticipate how many books we can buy without over leveraging ourselves. We're going to do our best to get the books out in a timely fashion and to make sure we don't run out of books too quickly. So we ask you to be patient, but the best way to make sure you receive your book the fastest is going to do a pre-order now. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Stick of Joseph YouTube channel. Once again, we are at the Firm Foundation Conference, and it has been a really good time. We are going to be here in October as well, so look out. We'll give you the information. It's been so fun to interact and talk with all of you, and it's been great talking to all the fun presenters here. We have another one with us right now. It's David Doane. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, well, we're excited. We're excited to hear. Thanks for welcoming me. Too. I am. This is the first time at the Firm Foundation Conference. You've been here since the beginning.
Since the very beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, we recently have released, I don't know when this video is going to come out, but at some time in the past, we've released videos on Mulek and on the Phoenicians and all of this, where we went to DC and we got to, have that whole experience. Now, David has spent a significant amount of time looking into Mulek, and he's going to share with us his theories on who Mulek is and where the name comes from and all of that. So, David, without further ado, get into it.
Well, thank you. I grew up with a Jewish mother.
Oh, really?
And so, and did a master's degree in Middle Eastern Studies from BYU.
Okay, I didn't know you were this well credentialed. I thought you were.
I also have a master's degree in economics, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, cool.
One for food, one for fun.
Yeah,
F-squared treatment for education.
That's awesome.
But I've always had an interest in things Middle East, Jewish things, scriptures. Mm-hmm. Even before I became LDS, I joined the church when I was 22. That's 50 years ago now.
Really?
And quite an experience, but that's a whole different.
You're 72?
Yes.
Holy cow! You did not see that. You've been. That's why you got that health company that's helping you.
Right.
Keeps you young.
Yeah, and we can talk about the LifeWave stuff another time. But actually, there's a connection. But it's an interesting connection. Yeah. And one of the characters that there was so little information on in the Book of Mormon was Mulek. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not fluent in, but I get by in Hebrew. And I look at the name and I thought, well, that's a title. That's not a name. Mm-hmm. And people were struggling with trying to figure out who this guy was. And they've been looking at, Mulek, Malachi, and some guys. You're looking for a name. Mm-hmm. It's a title. Mm-hmm. Let's put it back into the proper context.
And so what is the title? Let's explain that.
And then let's try and find his name. Mm-hmm. And the title it can be either king or prince, depending on the context that when you're using the word. Mm-hmm. And in Semitic languages, Hebrew's one, but Phoenician is another. And it's like, I lived in Ireland for 2 years. Professionally, my profession took me there.
Cool.
I used to run a lot of marketing for big software companies.
Mm-hmm.
And when I lived there, it was 6 months before I understood what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But you speak English, but I don't quite understand. And so you're just a different dialect. So I thought, let's try and find it. And then Hugh Nibley, in the early 80s, in the Ensign, published an article talking about how he had gone through a garrison cities south of Jerusalem, artifacts, they called the Lachish pottery shards, or the Lachish letters.
Okay.
And he found that the queen had come down there with Baruch the scribe, who we know as Jeremiah's scribe.
Okay.
And she had 2 daughters with her, and they delivered orders to the garrison commander to hold at all costs, because they knew that the Babylonians were coming.
Really?
And Nebuchadnezzar knew that the last major military obstacle between him and Jerusalem was Lachish.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to take it out, but he published the name of the youngest son who authenticated the orders from dad.
Really?
Because a common military tactic then was to often send fake orders to the guy you were opposing and send 10,000 of his troops 40
mm-hmm.
miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so they authenticated with family members. But Jeremiah thought, I also need to get them out of Jerusalem. He knew that they had already killed the first 2 sons. Now, he was only 31 years old, Zedekiah.
Yeah, so his youngest had to be really young.
His oldest kids were probably mid-teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
His youngest son, and I'll get into this in a second, how I know that his youngest son was already born. There's been some theories that maybe mom was pregnant
in utero,
with him.
yeah.
And I don't think that was true for some reasons I'll explain in a second.
Okay. Yeah.
But so then the last thing we hear about him after, that's not even in Scripture. That comes off the Lachish shards.
Mm-hmm.
The last time we hear about anybody, the queen and her daughters and family, it says, is in Tappan's, Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Baruch takes them there. Jeremiah meets them. And so then they're gone. And suddenly we have...
Is this written in Scripture,
it's
them
in
going
Scripture,
down to Egypt?
in a number of places.
So
now what's interesting about Tappan's is you do the research on it and you find out that they've done a lot of archaeological studies in the last century. You really can't do much anymore because it's in the middle of the Suez Canal.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
at the mouth of the Suez Canal, underwater, is Tappan's, Egypt.
Really? Interesting.
Okay, and so there's no evidence of having a large population that ever lived there, more than a few dozen people.
Mm-hmm.
At least the studies that were done a long time ago.
So let me get this straight. Because Zedekiah's sons, as far as I understand, aren't killed until Jerusalem is sacked and he's taken back to Babylon.
That's right.
So
she got out of town before that happened.
Yeah. So, but you were saying something about how his 2 sons had already been killed. Did he?
No, when it was sacked.
Oh, yeah, when it was sacked. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the queen was in Lachish with the son.
She went down to Lachish to take those orders and had her 2 daughters and son there with her to prove who she was.
Which how far?
I understand it's
she?
roughly 15 miles south of Jerusalem.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get this all in my head. So essentially, Zedekiah sends orders to Lachish, hold at all costs.
Yes.
And the way that they verify that these aren't fake orders from someone else is they send members of his family.
Yeah.
So they sent the queen.
They
so
would
the
usually
queen's written on the pottery shards?
Yeah, it says the queen. It doesn't give her name, though.
Yeah.
And they usually send a son.
Yeah, as well.
Okay.
But this could have been a little bit. That's why they sent the queen as well with the son,
Right.
because he was so young.
Right. And,
okay.
And then you
this
have
is wild. This
all
is
these
cool.
speculative. Well, they're not totally speculative, but a lot of contemporary stuff that. Oh, what's his name? Torsheimer and some of these guys have been trying to find Mulek.
Uh-huh.
And they say, well, Jeremiah was using him to send messages back and forth because there was, he wasn't always that loyal with Zedekiah. I say it wasn't always. He was probably almost never loyal to Zedekiah.
Who was Jeremiah? Yeah.
Because remember, Zedekiah was kind of the ringleader between the Egyptians
and the Babylonians,
the Phoenicians,
yeah.
and them, and said, "Hey, let's not keep paying tribute anymore." And that's
Jeremiah
why
warned against
That's
that.
why the Babylonians then came out. And they took out the Egyptians first. They didn't even have to go to Egypt to do it, though, because their army was up in modern-day Syria doing some more conquering.
Yeah.
And the Babylonians went up and took them out there. And then they took out the Assyrians right behind them. Then they went over and took out the Phoenicians down the coast, came inland, took out Lachish, and then Jerusalem. Because if you look where Jerusalem is geographically to Egypt, and that's usually been their foe historically in Israel, was coming up the valley there all the way to Jerusalem, and Lachish was put right there as an obstacle.
Wow. So what you're saying is that maybe Zedekiah is telling Queen and his youngest son, hey, deliver this to Lachish and then get the heck out of there.
That's right.
Wow.
And Jeremiah knew what was going to happen, so he entrusted Baruch to get him out
So
and down
he
there
escorts him down.
while he was trying to deal with things as they were.
This is
Because remember,
really,
Zedekiah
really
kept putting him in jail, then releasing him, and putting him in jail,
Yeah.
back and forth. And the Babylonians, when they came in, released him from jail.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, so he meets up. But in Taphans, we have all of them together, all these refugees together. And it's interesting because it talks about the queen, her daughters, and all who were with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was others that were there probably with him as well.
Wow. So it talks about Zedekiah's, like one of his, or the queen,
Yeah.
heading down there. So, okay, so now obviously you're familiar with, and you address some of the theories. Where do the Phoenicians come in? Where do you think the Phoenicia connection comes in?
Okay, when I look at the word Mulek, it's spelled in the Phoenician dialect. If you transliterate the Phoenician into English, it would be Mulek for prince or little prince, whereas if it were Hebrew, it would be Melek.
Yeah, Melek. Yeah.
And I go, does that mean we got a Phoenician contact here? Well, I've been researching for decades, literally, various Hebrew topics, and one of them that I wanted to know about was, where's their navy? They don't have a navy. Never did have a navy. They do now, today, but they didn't then. They would just contract mercenary navy for fighting, or ships for cargo and trade. And the biggest, or I can't say biggest because he was a small man, but the biggest expert on the subject of Hebrew sailors was Raphael Patet, and he suggested that 40% of the sailors on Phoenician ships were from the tribe of Dan.
Interesting. Okay.
So deep connection
there.
And remember, they were supplying timber for the temple, for Solomon's temple. Deep connections there with them all.
And so do you subscribe to the idea, like the whole idea of the island of Jerba, and that they eventually migrated there, potentially, or to Carthage, and then
because
left?
It's interesting because I'm going to jump forward and then come back.
Okay, do it.
I moved to Ireland in the 90s. And I went to Trinity University to look for, I had heard some legends, had read some, quote, legends.
Of Jeremiah going up there.
About Jeremiah going there. Let's go read the source material on this. So I'm in there, and it takes some months and months and months to find it, but we find it. And you start reading some of these histories of there, and they talk about their high king Haramon marries the oldest daughter of King Zedekiah. Wait a minute, how did he get here?
Yeah.
And then you start finding out, go back and do more research on the Phoenicians. Wait a minute, where was their network of ships and cargo, their commerce? Where'd they go? Well, they were going
everywhere.
Up to Ireland. They would go around Spain and hug the coast and then cross in France and over to Ireland.
Really?
Yeah, and then we have going all the way over to North America, up and down the St. Lawrence Seaway, hauling copper over.
Yeah.
If you look at most of the Bronze Age copper in Europe, a great big percentage of it, the copper content of that bronze,
comes from the Middle
came
East.
from Lake Superior.
Oh, Lake Superior.
Yes.
Really?
And I would reference Wayne May as quoted the studies on that. You can metallurgically identify the copper content in bronze and see where it's from.
Oh, wow.
Just like they do with nuclear weapons. They can tell you where the uranium came from and who harvested it and put it in,
where it came
used
from.
it.
Yeah, that's cool. So, all right. I'm just going to try to get this all together. So they're in Lachish. They head down to Egypt. Eventually, they make their way to maybe Carthage or to Jerba.
Yeah.
And then you think some of them went north up to Ireland. Some of them went to America.
So I have them not leaving from Taphans, but leaving from Memphis, which is just down the road from Taphans, capital of Egypt, going to Carthage. They could have easily stopped at Jerba. Many Jews were getting out of Dodge.
And
get out or die.
Yeah.
And so Jerba started getting a lot more people there then. I like the fact that, they talk about how they might have the doors of Solomon's temple down in the basement there of their synagogue there. Okay, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
And how do you authenticate that?
Yeah.
That they're legitimate. But it's I like that. It works with this historical account. I have them leaving Carthage eventually and I would surmise or guess that the Babylonians were still after that last heir to the throne. And the reason I think that is, where did Nebuchadnezzar go immediately upon the seizure of Jerusalem? He went back to Memphis, Egypt. He had already conquered it. He took his palace guard, thousands of guys. They went down to there. He set up his chair right in front of their palace, and there's a portico there. And this is important to understand why Jeremiah and Ireland and all these other things, because they started digging up some of the stones in the portico, the patio. What were they looking for? And why did he go there that fast? He was looking for that last heir and the stone of scone that they were coronating their kings on.
So you think, okay, so you're saying that Nebuchadnezzar knows that there's another son that needs to be killed, and he's going after him down in Memphis?
Yes.
That is
interesting. And that's why they left. They didn't stay there very long.
Huh.
And they went to Carthage, where they knew they could be safe.
Because they could find refuge in Egypt, because that's who they were allying themselves with.
Yeah, and there were a lot of Jews in Egypt. I mean, you've got a mercenary force down in, Elephantine, way down south there, that had been hired by the Egyptians for a couple centuries.
Yeah.
And, they had been there a long time, and they're back and forth. It's like us and the people in Idaho. Yeah.
Wow, David, this is really, really interesting. So,
well, and what started putting the pieces together for me was in Ireland, where I go to Jeremiah's tomb when I'm living there. The second stone in on the left side as you walk in, which is supposed to be his tomb there at Newgrange, it's locked up now.
Have they ever excavated it and
They say they have, but I can't find the records.
I know, because if that really, we need to.
But listen, this stone has these pictographic history of them leaving Egypt and arriving in Ireland.
Really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And with one person less than they started. Baruch died when they were at Gibraltar, which included not only the island but part of the coast there. And the king of Gibraltar ended up marrying the younger daughter of the two daughters of one of Mulek's sisters.
Yeah.
He had two older sisters there, and the younger of the two married the king there. And his oldest sister married the High King Eramon of Ireland and became, in the Celtic words, Tia Tefi, Queen Tia Tefi. And they adopted the Torah for their law.
Yeah.
They still call it the Brehon Law. And they still use Torah for law there in Ireland.
Strange.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. I need to go to Ireland now.
So then I have them leaving from there.
From Ireland. And
heading north.
St. Lawrence Seaway, is that kind of your thoughts?
Heading up to, the different islands, the Faroe Islands up north, and from there it's a quick skip over to Iceland and down to Greenland. A lot of critics have said that, well, wait a minute, the currents don't go the direction you want. I go, wait a minute, 9 months out of the year they don't go the direction I want, but 3 months out of the year, if you're staying close to the coast, you can sail right over, no problem.
Yeah.
And we know because the Vikings were doing it regularly.
Yeah. They 1100 AD, right? They travel to the Americas.
So we have them going down to St. Lawrence Seaway, and now we've got some...
Hey, bring the mic just a little closer to your mouth, yeah.
We've got a little bit of evidence. We would think that there was a presence of Jews and Irish people together going down the St. Lawrence Seaway, because for Ireland they have this circle symbol for the island of Ireland, and then it's carved into rocks up and down the St. Lawrence Seaway with menorahs next to it.
I haven't been able to yet verify this claim. I'm going to reach out to David and look more into it, but I did find that there are inscriptions of menorahs found in Ireland, and so here's actually a picture of one. But in terms of on the St. Lawrence Seaway, I have yet to be able to verify that claim yet, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I showed pictures of it yesterday.
Holy cow, I need to get your presentation. I'm sad I was stuck at this booth because I'd love to see it. Wow. And so this is really, really interesting, and it makes me want to go to Ireland. Also, archaeological community, dig up the tomb. We can do it respectfully. Yeah. And let's see if there's actually bones in there, and then DNA test them.
I think the original plan was to go no further than Ireland.
Yeah.
Because if you could overturn the Babylonians eventually someday, you could bring back your legal king.
Mm-hmm.
But they never did, and they kept. I think the Babylonians were continuing to pursue them.
Yeah.
They didn't send armies, but they sent agents.
Mm-hmm.
Carthage was a city open to everybody. It was a major trading hub of that part of the Atlantic
it's like
and
the San
eastern
Francisco
part of the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
It was much, much bigger.
Wow.
People go, wait a minute, that's not Phoenician. Yeah, it is. It was their biggest colony. And after Babylonians took out the Phoenician city-states, the home states, Carthage was
it became one till the Romans messed it up. So, okay, so this is really interesting. So the idea is like they go down to Egypt, but Nebuchadnezzar chases them down to Memphis. And so they know that he's going to pursue them because they have the blood of the king of Zedekiah. And so what happens is they're like, the Phoenicians who have traveled up north prior are like, this is a good place to go. Take them up there. Eventually, do you think it is maybe like a spiritual reason that they feel the need to travel across the Americas? Do you think God's telling them, or do you think it's more like, let's just get farther away?
I think it was a practical reason.
A practical reason.
And look at, how do you protect your trade secrets of where you're getting your copper from?
Mm-hmm.
We know that people the Mycenaeans had done it before them. They were coming over to Lake Superior and bringing stuff. They would stop in some island, Shetland Islands, Faroe Islands, or Ireland, Great Britain, Northern Great Britain, Scotland there. And they would literally trade captains. And so that the captain that was sailing the Mediterranean didn't know the route.
Didn't know the route
across
to
the
next place.
North Atlantic.
Wow.
So
I
think Ireland was their way station where they
was
would
a trade. So there's a trade. So the copper from Michigan that shows up in Ireland is evidence that there was an ancient trade route, and that potentially Mulek and the others just kind of hop from boat to boat to get to the
They didn't necessarily always stop in Ireland and unload their copper there. They would bring it all the way down into the Mediterranean. There's been Phoenician ships sunk off the coast of modern-day Turkey that have been found loaded with copper from Lake Superior.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Holy cow!
Yeah.
I need to get your presentation. I need the notes on all this, because this is wild. If what you're saying is legit, which I have no reason to not believe it, that's really cool.
The Ancient America, who publishes the Ancient America magazine, they used to do some LDS special editions.
Yeah.
They now have changed the name on the specials to Land of Promise. There's an article in there that tells this story.
Is that the Zebulon one? The
blue?
Yeah. Okay.
It starts
I
on
have
page 69.
Okay, cool. I'll have to read that in there.
And I keep trying to add more and more archaeology or linguistics and everything. People say, well, Jeremiah was never in Ireland. No, but their patron saint was Jeremiah, but they called him Yarbanel. And I could show you how you could take it from the Hebrew into the Celtic, and back into Jeremiah in English.
That's crazy. I want that to be true. I want Jeremiah to end up in Ireland. It would be great, because that's so cool.
Here's the kicker on it. A map stone that came out of southern Illinois, a stone with a carved map on it, shows the Great Lakes and the major river systems.
Yeah.
And then in the bottom left, it has a bunch of writing on it. It looks more Phoenician than Jewish or Hebrew. And the letters Nebuchadnezzar, NDB, are on there. It may be the first physical evidence we have of the Book of Mormon character.
That's cool. Wow. Well, David, thank you so much. Where can people find you if they have questions?
Here at this conference, I'm at tables 17 and 18.
Yeah, online though. Is there any way that people want to reach out?
There will be shortly again. I took it down because I'm rebuilding the website.
Cool.
It was called bookofmormonremnants.com.
Okay. All right. We'll look it up. Thank you so much for all of you watching. And until next time, stay curious and hungry.